Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We're going to be in the Mythic Adventures book today. We are finishing the War Magic series, at least in the Mythic Adventures book. I have plans to continue the series, but when I continue it, we'll be diving into older D&D editions. So, we are on level 6 Mythic Spells of the Arcane, which is the final spell level we need to cover. So let's quickly read what spells are going to be covered and then dive into reading what they do in the book, if they're even in the book. Since after doing this series, during doing this series, I've noticed that there's more than a handful of spells listed that have no descriptions whatsoever after you start looking for them. So Anti-Magic Field, Battle Link, Beast Shape 4, Chain Lightning, Circle of Death, Conjure Black Pudding, Contingency, Disintegrate, Elemental Body 3, Enemy Hammer, Flesh to Stone, Form of the Dragon 1, Globe of Invulnerability, Guards and Wards, Mislead, Monstrous Physique 4, Move Earth, Transformation, Wall of Iron. So, we're going to start with the Anti-Magic Field, which will be great if your enemy uses a lot of magic, has a lot of summoned creatures, possibly is using a lot of undead. Especially if you get them to funnel through an area where they have to walk through that. And Anti-Magic Field says, select a number of spell schools equal to half your tier. Spells and effects of the chosen schools are unaffected by the Anti-Magic Field. So if you wanted to be offensive with the Anti-Magic Field, you could pick Evocation and cast your Evocation in the Anti-Magic. So that could make it more devastating, especially if you're only tailoring to what your spellcasters can do in the siege or defense of a position. Battle Mind Link. Battle Mind Link. When you cast a spell, if your linked ally uses a Mythic Path ability against a creature, you can use the same path ability against that creature as if you had it yourself. Okay, based on that, it's not going to be useful for warfare, for a bunch of soldiers, because they're not going to have the ability to use that. Now, the spell's not a bad spell for your players, it's just not good for a big military war. Beast Shape 4. This one should be useful, just like all the other beast shapes. Okay. This is all the beast shapes are listed in one paragraph here, or a couple of paragraphs. You have to know the previous beast shape, like the non-mythic beast shape, to learn this beast shape. You don't have to know beast shape 3 to learn beast shape 4. You have to know the non-mythic beast shape 4 to learn the mythic beast shape 4. The spell's bonuses to ability scores increases by 2. The natural armor bonus increases by 1, and the ability score penalties decrease by 2 to a minimum penalty of 0. Choose one natural attack type the animal form has, such as bite or claws. The critical multiplier for this attack type increases by 1, maximum times 4. You can also augment this. If you expend 2 uses of mythic power, the ability score bonus increases by an additional 2. During each casting of the spell, a number of times equal to your tier, you can act as if you had natural spell feat for 1 round. If you put this on an item and give it to a bunch of soldiers, say it's a one-use item that disintegrates after being used, so about at the price of a potion or a scroll, just a 6th level potion or scroll, they would use it, turn into whatever beast was pre-built into the item. They could wreak havoc into the enemy's ranks. Yes, there's a good chance they'll be destroyed by the enemy if the enemy can counterattack well. but the amount of chaos for your regular soldiers to take advantage of should be great. And if they aren't killed, then you would have great stories for them to tell about their turning into this giant beast, this animal of some sort, and wreaking havoc on the enemy. Next is Chain Lightning, which is going to be a great spell for a warfare. This spell deals 1d10 points of damage per caster level, maximum 20d10, and the save DC isn't reduced for secondary targets. Secondary targets have to be within 30 feet of any other target, not necessarily the primary target, so the distance is even longer for it. But you hit a row of soldiers, and you're doing d10s, 6th level, you have to be at least 11th or 12th level to cast this, maybe 13th, depending upon your class. You're going to be doing enough dice damage to destroy most regular soldiers on the battlefield, because they're only going to be level 1 to even the most experienced would be about 5th, that are not heroic in any way. So you're going to take out the regular soldiers pretty easily with that. And that'll open up a hole for your soldiers to take advantage of. Next is Circle of Death. Circle of Death. The number of hit dice worth of creatures killed by the spell increases to 1d6 per caster level, maximum 20d6. Add your tier to the maximum hit dice of creatures that can be affected by the spell. For example, at 3rd tier, a creature with 12 hit dice cannot be affected. Augmented 6th. If you expend 2 uses of mythic power, creatures that succeed at their saves against this spell take 1d6 points of damage per tier. Interesting. Without the augment, it still sounds like it'd be pretty useful. You get that circle out there, you're probably going to drop a section of the military. Now, if you can deliver that circle through one-use ranged items, like any other ranged thing we've been talking about in my previous videos, put it on a sling bullet, put it on a arrowhead, put it on a crossbow bolt. Hell, put it on a javelin. Just hope that you can throw it far enough that you're not in that circle, because that's not going to distinguish friend from foe. And as long as the person using it knows the area it's going to affect and can predict that area, to target a specific area on the battlefield, the AC is 5. And if it only just needs to impact, it doesn't matter what it hits in that area as long as it hits to activate. Then you have that area just all of a sudden killing a section of soldiers just from this one projectile hitting. Excuse me. So you can see that opening up holes in the enemy's defenses that your soldiers could take advantage of. Conjure Black Pudding. Well, Black Pudding's pretty bad, so the original spells out of the Ultimate Magic. The Black Pudding has fast healing equal to your tier, as do any puddings that split off from it. Ooh. The Black Pudding from this spell never attack you, though they're otherwise uncontrolled and might attack your allies, if there are no other obvious opponents. Augmented 6th. If you expend 2 uses of mythic power, the pudding gains the Savage Mythic template. See page 224. Puddings that split off from the giant pudding don't gain the template. That's interesting. Even without it augmented, a black pudding is going to do a lot of damage to the enemy, unless they have a means to destroy the pudding, which it's been forever since I read the Black Pudding, but for the most part, if you hit a pudding, it splits until you can get it down to a certain size, and then you can destroy it. It's just going to keep wreaking havoc until it can be destroyed, so you're going to sow a lot of chaos with even just one black pudding. Now imagine 3 or 4 of them appearing in the middle of a shield wall on the enemy's side, in the enemy's formation, as you're fighting the enemy. The first thing I would do with my forces after the pudding started sowing the chaos is I would command my forces to make a withdrawal while keeping their defenses but pulling back, so that way the pudding can only attack the enemy and not you guys. Just some extra strategy there. Contingency, that is a trigger for a spell. I already know that one. That could be very useful for traps and other spells that you want to place. Disintegrate. I don't like the Disintegrate out of Pathfinder. I didn't like the Disintegrate out of 3.5. But let's read the Mythic version of Disintegrate. And then I'll tell you the 3.0 D&D version of Disintegrate, the one that I like. Disintegrate. Select one alignment component that you have, chaotic, evil, or lawful. Nope, that's Desecrate. Where's Disintegrate? Shows my reading skills. Disintegrate. The damage dealt increases to 3d6 points of damage per caster level, maximum 60d6, plus a d4 points of constitution damage. A creature that succeeds in its saving throw takes 5d8 points of damage, plus 1 point of constitution damage. A creature whose constitution score is reduced to 0 by this spell is entirely disintegrated. Augmented 7th. If you expend 2 uses of mythic power, you fire 2 rays. Alternatively, you may fire only at 1 ray, but if the target is non-mythical creature and it fails its saving throw, it's automatically disintegrated regardless of its current hit points. Now, the 3.0 Disintegrate. You make a ranged attack to hit them with the ray. They get a save. It's a fortitude save, so it's not even a bad save for your melee characters. And if they make their save, they take like 5 dice, 5d8 damage. If that drops them to 0, they're disintegrated. If they fail their save, they are disintegrated. Because A, you had to hit them with the ray, and B, they got a save. And that's the version I like the best. That said, the version of heal and harm from 3.0 is what I like the best as well, too. Heal will heal you 100% to full by casting the spell, and cure you of the ailments heal heals in Pathfinder now. Harm will drop you down to a total of 1d4 hit points above 0 if cast upon you. But both heal and harm are touch spells. You have to touch the person to heal them. You have to touch the person to harm them. So if you're using heal as a weapon against the undead, it'll drop them to a d4, but you still have to touch them. And then if you use harm against undead, it heals them to full hit points. So now after that tangent rant, let's go with Elemental Body 3. And then Elemental Body. The spell's bonus to ability scores increase by 2. The natural armor increases by 1. So it's essentially like B-shape, except it's elementals. So it would function the best in combat the same way, turning them into elementals as they enter melee with the enemy, wreaking havoc as they're going through. Enemy Hammer. The target becomes entangled whether or not it succeeds at its saving throw. When using the target as a weapon, add half your tier to your attack roll and add your tier to the damage roll. Okay, it's out of Advanced Player's Guide. I'm not familiar with Enemy Hammer that much. I know I've done it in the Advanced Player's Guide, or at least looked at it. I can't give you a good way to use that with what little information's here. And I don't want to extend this video for like an hour long with me looking it up in other books. Flesh to Stone. That's a good one. Let me see if it's applicable to combat in a military battle. Flesh to Stone. It petrifies, so never mind. It's very useful, it's just not what I was thinking. So, and this one doesn't work the way it would have worked in 3rd edition. If you succeed on your saving throw, you're partially petrified. You become slowed as the slow spell for a number of rounds equal to the caster's tier. of Mythic. The creature can end this effect anytime, but it takes a full round action. By spending a full round action to break away its own petrified flesh, dealing 5d10 points of damage to itself, any effect that removes or reverses petrification negates this partial petrification and the slow effect. This spell can affect objects and undead, as long as it's primarily made of flesh or bone, such as a corpse or a zombie. It does not affect the target's gear. So if you cast it on somebody carrying gear, their gear doesn't turn to stone, but their body does. So that can be useful. I could see that being more useful as one-use items, archery weapons that you drop in, sling bullets, arrowheads, crossbow bolts, javelins. Because the individual target you hit would be the one hit with it. It'd be expensive one-use item, but it would be very useful because now you have part of your enemy turning into Medusa statues, the Medusa created statues. Form of the Dragon 1 allows you to turn into a dragon, which will be very useful, just like all the beast shapes and the elemental bodies. And it increases the ability score bonus, the natural armor by 1. Your breath weapon damage increases to 10d6. And all the dragon form's natural attacks increase by 1 step, so they do more dice damage. So that's pretty useful. Globe of Invulnerability. Add half your tier to the level of non-mythic spells the globe excludes. The globe excludes mythic spells of 4th level or lower. Okay. Just like any globe of invulnerability, it could be very useful to prevent damage from coming in. You could also isolate a target with it. Drop that on, use that on somebody you want to take hostage. They can't be harmed, but they also can't leave it unless I'm misremembering Globe of Invulnerability. If I am, put it in the comments below. Guards and wards. Sounds like that'll be useful for defending a sieged area or a base. Let's look at it. Guards and wards. You are alerted whenever any creature enters the warded area, as if by mental alarm spell, as long as you're on the same plane as the warded area. At will, you can concentrate to observe the warded area as if using Arcane Eye. When you start concentrating, the center always appears at the point you designate when you cast the spell. You can place 2 of the 5 effects listed in the spell, dancing lights and so on, instead of 1. Augmented Third. You can get black tentacles in 1 place, dispel magic in 1 place, entangle in 4 places, explosive runes in 3 places, and slow in 3 places. Interesting. Cool. I could see it being useful. It would definitely be useful to defend an area and to allow you to see what they're up to if they enter the area. Mislead. Monstrous physiques after mislead. Monstrous physique would function just like the dragon body, the elemental body, the beast form. You would use it in that fashion where you'd have a few people transform and start messing with the military. Alternatively, this is another option you could do. As long as the enemy doesn't keep its wits about them, if you can get the enemy in almost a panic, you could hit them with that ability and they'll transform and attack their own forces. Besides the panic that their own forces would have if somebody turned into a, this would be like the beast shape one. Yeah, the beast shape one. If somebody turned into a lion or a tiger right next to them, the first thing they do is panic and start attacking it, or a giant bear. So I was looking for mislead next. And then move Earth. Mislead. You create one illusionary double per 5 caster levels, each of which appears in your square or in an unoccupied square adjacent to yours. When you cast a spell, you can give each of the doubles a simple program task as a telepathic command, such as walk south, beg for mercy, or follow that troll. You can change or modify a single illusionary double's program by task by spending a swift move or standard action. This requires concentration. So it's going to be very useful as a defensive thing for your spellcasters, or if you wanted to use it before a battle began, you could use that to increase the size of your forces. You could split your forces if you're pretty sure the enemy knows how big your forces is, and if you have enough of these one-use items, you could have a quarter of your forces use this, or half your forces use this item, and they look like the full force there, where the other half can be doing whatever they're doing to gain the advantage of that battle. Move Earth. This spell can move Earth much more quickly, with each full round of casting allowing you to reshape 25-foot square area of up to 10 foot deep. All creatures on or under the ground within that area are knocked prone and moved to the closest square outside the area being shaped. A successful reflex save prevents the creature from being knocked prone, but it is still moved. It just allows you to excavate more quickly, which will be sort of good in the battle. It'd be better outside the battle where you're shaping a defensive area. But in the battle, you could all of a sudden create a small chasm or a small deep ditch, for all of a sudden appearing in the middle of your enemy's forces where it pushes them to either side of it, which could be used to isolate your enemy pretty good. Transformation. You can still cast spells and use spell completion and spell trigger items, but the level of the spell you are casting or using must be equal to or less than your tier. You gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your caster level. Okay, so that doesn't give me enough information to be able to throw that into a war scenario. And then the last spell is Wall of Iron. And it doesn't matter what Wall of Iron says, Wall of Iron's a wall, it'll be very useful. Drop that wall, you could split your enemy's forces in half, you could funnel your enemy down an area that you have pre-trapped, say a valley that you have traps already put in if you were able to set them up the day before or the weeks before. You can, the best use of it besides the funneling is also just splitting the enemy forces in half. Cast that in the middle of the shield wall long ways. Following the shield wall, you could split their forces in half, and now you only have to deal with half on one side of the shield, on one side of the iron wall, while the others have to figure out how to get around it and take time to get around it while you're dealing with the forces that are in front. That would devastate their ability to fight back. Now, if you could drop a few of those down with one-use items and pre-programmed how they're supposed to be, or train the person using the one-use item to visualize how it's supposed to land, that would aid you in really blocking your enemy. That's the last spell in the list. So with that, we are done with the War Magic spells out of the Mythic Adventures. The next time I do a War Magic spell, it's going to be out of 3rd edition D&D spells. So hopefully you all will be looking forward to that, because with this video here, it completes the Pathfinder version of it. So if you have any suggestions on future videos in the War Magic series, let me know as well. Put them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this series, check out the earlier videos and share these videos with your friends. Until we all game again, guys.